Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome back to the channel. In our previous two classes, we have explored some of the most important literary concepts like epic theatre, alliteration, assonance, consonance, and many more. The devices that literary techniques, literary terms that are helpful to solve the questions of UGC NET English literature and all the English literature exams. Literary terms and techniques are helpful for all the exams, English literature exams. Okay, so this is going to be the third class, and here we are going to continue this journey and try to dive into another set of powerful literary terms. And these terms that often appear in exams like UGC NET, we all know, and also these terms help all of us to develop a sharper understanding of all the writers that how they have used these terms in their writing to create the beauty, rhythm, and meaning. Okay, so let's begin with today's class. But before starting, I would like to request to all of the students who are watching the channel for the first time or have joined the channel for the first time, subscribe the channel. So do share the channel and let's start the class. Thank you so much for joining. So we all know that literary terms are the building blocks of all the works because by using this we analysis all the work written by different writers around the globe. So these terms, help us understand how writers create meaning and beauty and impact through their languages. From blank verse to apothegms, repetition to understatement, synesthesia, alliteration, consonants, all these literary terms are extremely valuable and helpful for our exams. So each of these terms opens a window into how literature really works. Okay, so stay tuned till the end of the video. You will find a lot of helpful literary terms for your exam perspective. Do not miss any part. So here the 51 mention here ballad. In previous class we were end on naturalism. So ballad, we all know what is ballad and how important it is. So a ballad is a narrative poem, often in quatrains that is in 4 lines with repetition and simple. Repetition and simple. How? It was originated in medieval oral tradition that we can find in the collection in Percy's Relics, 1765. And the ballet work we have so many. So basically, a ballet is a form of verse that it tells a story written in a quatrains that is in a 4 line, and it could be either a song or a poem, often with a dramatic, emotional, or tragic conclusions. So it is originated in majorly medieval or middle age. You can simply remember as oral tradition. It was originated, the way poetry, oral traditions, and initially it was sung and passed down through generations in various cultures and have evolved to include both traditional narrative forms from modern and also it highlights slow love songs in popular music. So this is the ballad. Here we can find the example, the rhyme of the ancient Marina by Coleridge, notable works and the examples, and it is the rooted in medieval era. Okay, so do remember the ballad. We have types and examples of ballad. There are folk ballads, literary ballads, and modern ballads. And if you will look throughout the historical context, you will find that it is rooted in the Middle Ages. Middle Ages, that is a medieval here as it is mentioned. So Middle Ages around 19th century, starting of the 19th century and 18th. So ballads were a characteristic form of song and popular poetry in Great Britain and Ireland. Okay, so this is the ballad. In romantic period, now we will find a lot of examples of ballad. The ballad form experienced a resurgence in popularity during the majorly in romantic period. Romantic period that was around the 18th century. 1798 was the period that was supposed to be the manifesto, the work, lyrical ballad, the work by Wordsworth. So here the ballad rooted and got popular from this age majorly. Ballads are, you can simply remember that it is a four-line stanza that are here mentioned in quatrains, known as quatrains. So this is the ballad. I hope you do have understood. Now let's move on to the next. Then we have very important one, and here it is blank verse. Very important. This is blank verse. It is an unrhymed iambic pentameter. That means each line usually has 10 syllables followed by the rhythm of unstressed and stressed. Okay, so it is, do remember, unrhymed iambic pentameter. Unrhymed iambic pentameter and followed by unstressed then stressed syllables. What are the key features of blank verse? So you will find the features of blank verse like meter. We have no rhyme. This blank verse follows no rhyme, flexibility, elevation. How? Meter written mainly in iambic pentameter, that is, we will find 5 iambs per line, 5 foot. No rhymes, unlike couplets or sonnets, the way they rhyme at the end of the line. Blank verse do not follow any such, but and also it does not use any rhyme schemes. Flexibility. Blank verse allows natural speech flow, often used in drama and long poems. Okay, so this is the features of a blank verse. Then elevation. Blank verse maintains dignity and seriousness fitting for epic or tragic themes. What are the greatest example of a blank verse? So how blank verse originated? Blank verse first introduced, or you can say it was coined by none other than Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey in 1517 to 1547. How he first used it in his English translation of Virgil's Aeneid that was published in 1554 after his death. Posthumously, you can say. So, who coined the term? The term blank verse was originated by Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, from the translation of Virgil's Aeneid work, which was published in 1554, and then later it was popularized in a broader way. And in which age this term was majorly popularized and used extensively by the same writers. So you can say when Henry Howard introduced the blank verse, it was around 1517 to 47. Here the year is mentioned. So this was the first appearance of blank verse in English literature. You can say blank verse first time it was appeared through Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, in the work Virgil's translation, in the work Virgil's Aeneid, translated by Henry Howard. So it was the first appearance of a blank verse. Now the important question is also asked by Net, that who popularized this term? Who popularized this term, that is a blank verse? So none other than the very popular and most important writer we have Christopher Marlowe from Renaissance, the Elizabethan age, that is 1564 and 1593, the birth and death. He gave blank verse power and flexibility in Elizabethan drama. He used this term extensively in his work. Like we can see Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine, Dew of Malta, he popularized this. He gave power and flexibility in by using blank verse. He also called blank verse a mighty line because of his famous strong rhythmic lines. Tambourine and Dr. Foster's, we can see he used blank verse and popularized. And after when he popularized, there were so many writers who used this term in a broader way. And we have Shakespeare from the same age. William Shakespeare, the most of his plays are written in blank verse. And to be or not to be, that is the question. The very famous soliloquy from the work Hamlet, we can find the blank verse scheme here. Shakespeare, after once the Christopher Marlowe popularized this term now. You can see William Shakespeare was the one who perfected blank verse by mentioning, by using this term, by using this form in all his work. So here it is written perfected blank verse in drama. Who? It is William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare. Also, he used it in almost all his plays, blending it with prose and rhymed verse for variety. Then, after Shakespeare, we can move on to the John Milton. John Milton gave blank verse an epic look. So, in Paradise Lost, that is supposed to be an epic. Paradise Lost is written entirely in blank verse. He also popularized blank verse and helped blank verse to establish in epic poetry with Paradise Lost 1667, and he gave it a grand, elevated and flexible style. Who? John Milton. So first the one who popularized, first the name you will have Christopher Marlowe, then you have Shakespeare, and then you have John Milton. These are the three Elizabethan greatest writers who popularized, who helped blank verse established. And then, but do not forget who coined the term, because these there is would be more questions from this single term. It is actually a form, not a term, actually a form. Next one we have, this is the latest literary term popular these days, apophthegm. It is a concise, instructive saying or maxim, often with a pointed or witty edge. Pointed or witty edge. So you can memorize this in a way that it is a short, witty, and pointed. It is, you can compare this with, we have a proverb or aphorism. Aphorism. But in compared to aphorism and proverb, this one is sharper. In the sense we are using now, this one is the sharper in compared to both the aphorism and the uh, proverb. So here, unlike a proverb which is popular and traditional, one of the literary terms, an apophthegm is often attributed to a specific person, usually in a philosophical or in moral in nature. Okay, so here we have the examples. Know thyself, attributed to Socrates by Socrates. Time is money. Benjamin Franklin. Writers, one who knows to use apophthegm. We have Francis Bacon in his essay Oscar Wilde epigrams and often serve as apophthegm. So you can remember this term. There will be more latest literary terms. End of the video. Do watch till the end. Okay. Then we have portmanteau. Portmanteau, this one is also one of the PYQs given in matching questions. Matching questions. How they will put such questions, literary terms, in matching or yes, in majorly you will find this in matching or statement based questions. You have to match with definition, or they will give you the line to identify that which literary terms best define the line, best fits to the line. So you have to identify, but only you can do this when you will be able to learn the definition. So portmanteau, word that is created by blending the sounds and meanings of two different words. Two different words, the sounds and meaning from two different words, that is the blend. You are combining the sounds and meanings of two different words to create a portmanteau. This term was coined by Lewis Carroll in Through the Looking Glass to describe words like sleethy. Sleethy becomes by combining slimy and lithe. Here you can simply understand here when you will see this example, brunch, how it has created, how it is originated by combining breakfast and lunch. So it become brunch. Then we have a smog. So smoke and fog. It became smog. So these are the portmanteau you can simply understand. And the writers who use known to use this term is Lewis Carroll, who created James Joyce, the modern advertising copywriter. So I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next one. Then we have repetition. Repetition is also frequently appear in the exam, everybody. So repetition, we have the deliberate reuse of the same word or phrases to emphasize an idea, to emphasize or to focus or to stress on something. You are using the repetition word or the phrase or word or sentence so that your idea can emphasized, so that your idea can noticed. So this is the repetition. It is a literary device, you can say, where words or phrase are repeated for emphasis or stressed out. Okay. And it has types. Do remember, very important, it has types, and the types we have anaphora. These are the types of repetition, anaphora. Then we have epiphora and diacope. So these are the types of repetition. Okay. So repetition, it creates rhythm, reinforces themes, and enhance emotion by emphasizing, by repeating the same word or phrases. So now you understood. It explain. It includes, like just here told you, anaphora repetition at the beginning and epistrophe repetition at the end, and also diacope. Example, when you will see here, you will find, you will identify, you will find out. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This phrase here repeated. It is from the Robert Frost Stopping by Woods on Snowy Evening. This line has been taken, and also it is this line appeared in June 2025 exam. So in this way, they put such questions. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, rhetorical repetition here you will find, and the writers who use this term frequently, we have Walt Whitman, the American poet, American writer, Martin Luther King, and Charles Dickens. Okay, so I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next one, everybody. Now we have understatement. So understatement, as the name suggests, understatement is a figure of speech that makes something seem less important than it is. If the situation, if there is something that is important to you, but since we are using the understatement term, that situation will become less important. If somebody will make you feel the situation or anything, make you feel the importance reduce, less important. So it is a figure of speech in which a writer deliberately makes a situation seem less important or serious than it is. Often used for ironic or humorous effect, and it is an opposite of a hyperbole. Opposite of a hyperbole, it is an understatement that shows something less important than its actual sense. You can understand like this. So after a huge storm, we had a little rain. Here It was a huge storm they are talking about, but the situation here, if the storm was huge, how can the rain will be little? So here it is trying, they are trying to show that storm might be less, or storm was not huge as it has been emphasized here, the word huge mentioned here. So by using here the little rain, it is simply justifying that a storm might not be as huge as it is mentioned here. Mark Twain describing a flood as a bit damp. The situation they are totally trying to make you feel less important than it actually seems. Writers who known for use Jane Austen, Mark Twain, and Ernest Hemingway. Who? Understatement. Move on to the next. Very, very important and the latest term to remember, and that is Zema. It is a figure of a speech where a single word, usually a verb or adjective, applies to more than one noun, blending together grammatically. Adjective applies to more than one noun, blending together both. You are grammatically and logically trying to create different ideas and in a stylistic flair or wit manner. Okay, so one word, if you will say, it is usually a verb. Zema is usually a verb that here it combines adjective to more than one noun or more than one words, you can also say, in different senses to create different ideas or different senses. You are using this word. This one is also can be written to remember. Example, she broke his car and his heart. Here, both car is also broken and heart is also broken. So by using one word, here they are trying to convey two things, create two ideas, trying to convey two meanings that with by breaking the car, not only she breaks the car but also her heart. Second one you have here Alexander Pope or stain her honor or her new brocade. The writers who known to use this term Alexander Pope, Charles Dickens. Very, very important. It creates wit, surprises, and consciousness. Surprises, you can also say that it creates consciousness and also surprises. And here the wit word is mentioned. Another one we have is synesthesia. Synesthesia is a literary device where one sense is described in terms of another. One sense is described in terms of another sense you are here trying to convey. This synesthesia often used in poetry to create vivid imagery and sensory blending. Sensory. So you can say that this literary device where one sense is described in terms of another by mixing sensory experiences. You are mixing your sensory experiences to create another term. It has you can say it creates vivid imaginative imagery. You are creating something from your own mind, from your own imagination. That is imagination. That is the synesthesia. Okay. So here is the example with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz by Emily Dickinson. This line has been taken here. The color blue you are mixing with the sound buzz. So this is the one sense mixing with the another, the sound with the color. The scent of roses rang like a bell. The scent, the fragrance, the smell of the roses, the fragrance of the roses is seems like a bell. It rangs like a bell. So by creating two scents mixing your experiences one from the another is you can simply understand like this. And the writer who known to use this Charles Baudelaire, Keats and Nabucco. Move on to the next. Then we have malapropism. It is also one of the PYQ's important one. The mistaken use of a word in place of a similar sounding one, often with unintentionally amusing effect. It was, you can say that you are mistaking a use of word in a place of similar sounding one, the way we do in homophones when you use the same sound word that we often mistake. So it is named after here Mrs. Malaprop, who was a character in Sheridan's play The Rival. So this term you can say it has been taken from the one of the characters from Sheridan's play, Mrs. Malaprop. The work is The Rivals. The Rivals. Texas has a lot of electrical votes. Electrical votes here you are mistaking. A lot of electrical votes. Texas. Mrs. Malaprop says illiterate him from your memory instead of obliterate. He is the, and the another one, if you will say, he is the pineapple of politeness. Pineapple of a politeness. So these are the examples of malapropism. That means here you are, what you are doing here, you are mistakenly using one word just because the sound is similar to amuse the, or you can say unintentionally you are creating another word, another meaning. And very important, this thing is here mentioned. Do remember that this term is created from one of the character of Sheridan's play Mrs. Malaprop. Let's go on to the next one. Latotes. Again, it's important. It was June PYQs. It was they were asked to match with its definition. So litos is a figure of speech in which an affirmative is expressed by negating its opposite. It uses deliberate understatement to emphasize a point. Emphasize a point. This figure of speech you are using in an affirmative manner to express its negative, negating its opposite sense. To create opposite sense, you are using the affirmative part of the litotes, this device, this term, to so that you can deliberate the understatement to emphasize the point. One of the term just you understood that the writer makes you feel the less important. In understatement, you saw this, no? Understatement you just saw this, that the writer tries to make you feel that the situation is less important. So here it is clearly mentioned that by using this term somebody deliberate understatement. Now in understatement you are trying to create the situation, make the situation feel less important than it is actually. Then and in litos you are trying to make those understatement situation make emphasize by putting your points, so this you can say that understatement and litos both are the opposite, contradictory to each other. Okay. Litotes often relies on double negatives or negation to soften the expression. It is common in irony and understatement. In literature, it can add subtly or politeness or convey modesty. Both here it is mentioned. So this term was originated from the Greek litos, meaning plain or mere. Here the example you have not bad, meaning very good. In Beowulf, you will find the example of Ritos. That was no small gift. It simply, it opposite meaning, if you will say, it was a great gift. So here you can say, Irony is applying here. Irony you are applying here. That means you are saying something, but the meaning is different. Now let's move to the next one. Metonymy. This literary term, the figure of speech, it is more frequently asked in exams, so do remember this. It is a figure of speech where one word or phrase is substituted with another closely related term. So, how you will understand this term? So, it creates a symbolic or indirect reference. It creates a symbolic or indirect reference by using this in one word, or you can say it is a substituted with another, but both should be the closely associated. Both should be the closely associated. Instead of directly naming the object, you name something closely connected to it. And here the example you have here, the crown for monarchy or royal power. The crown is the word that relates to the monarchy, king or queen. The pen is mightier than the sword. The pen is here mentioned or closely related to the writing, and sword here related to military, or you can say the warrior. Now you understood the word metonymy. Now let's go on to the next one. So another literary term we have here is a mood. Mood, you know how what type of mood we are in right now. When we see something funnier, we laugh. When we see something tragic, we became sad. So the emotional atmosphere or feeling in a literary work that creates in the reader by watching or reading the stories, watching the drama shows, anything. So that how our mood became is what it signifies here. So mood is shaped by setting tone, imagery, and word choice, and it influences how readers emotionally respond to the text. When we read something emotionally tragic story, we became sad by feeling the words itself. So this is what and how our mood became. Example you will have here, Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven creates a dark, eerie, and melancholic mood, while on the other hand, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice often has a witty and light-hearted mood. There is also a sad part, but majorly this work is known for the witty characters, the way we have Elizabeth Bennet, the main protagonist. Then we have its very, very important point of view. Point of view, from which perspective the work, the writer is trying to narrate the story. That is what the point of view means. So, perspective from which a story is narrated, the narrator of the story, the narrator of the drama, the narrator of the novel, who are those narrators? So, we have the types of narrator, the first person, second person, third person, and very important that always appear in the exam, third person omniscient narrator. Third person omniscient narrator who knows all the characters' thought. So first person are the character narrator in the story that normally and majorly uses I, we to narrate the story, and who provides personal insight, but they have limited knowledge and in a subjective manner. Okay, so example you will have of the first person, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. In this um, the story is narrated from the perspective of the first person, and that is Holden Caulfield. First person Holden Caulfield, do remember, you can note down. Then we have a second person, very, very important. Second person narrator that addresses the reader directly by with the word using you. Second person using you here, it addresses the reader directly. And also we will find this rarely in novels but common in experimental or interactive type of writing. And example you can simply understand with the Italo Calvino's If on a winter's night a traveler. If on a winter's night a traveler, this is the example of second person narrator. Second person narrator. Okay. Another one we have third person limited. Third person limited, that means the narrator who knows thoughts of one character. So that is the third person, and third person majorly uses he, she, or they. So these are the third person narrators, and third person narrator you have normally you will find from the outside of the story, outside of the story. Okay. So these are the third person narrators. Example, you can simply understand Ernest Hemingway's short stories you will find normally, and we have Middlemarch by George Eliot. So in these works we can find the third person narrator, and another one we have third person but the omniscient narrator. And who are the omniscient narrator? Very very important. Omniscient narrator who knows all the characters' thoughts, all the characters' thoughts, feeling, past, future, everything. So this is the omniscient narrator in the work. Okay. So example of we can understand the omniscient narrator we have. Do you remember the Achakka who narrates the story? In which work you do comment? It's a PYQs actually. So we have the example of the omniscient narrator, War and Peace, the work by Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace. Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, this is also an example. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, this is also mostly omniscient that focus on Elizabeth. So these type of works you can find the example of omniscient character, okay? And also some part George Eliot's Middlemarch. In this, narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of multiple characters. So the one narrator that knows the multiple characters, thoughts, feelings, past, future, that will be the omniscient narrator. Okay. And apart from this, we have a stream of consciousness technique. And what are these? This thing you can also use this. It is also a narrative technique. That is why I'm telling you here. Narrative technique. Narrative technique that shows a character's inner thoughts in continuous flow. For example, you will simply understand the stream of consciousness. There are so many writers. Virginia Woolf in the work Mrs. Dalloway. We will find William James. We have then there are so many, and unreliable after a stream of consciousness. Then we have unreliable narrator. Unreliable narrator. Then we have multiple points of view. So unreliable narrators, the narrator whose credibility is doubtful, and you will find this in Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Multiple character, you will find multiple points of view. The short story, a story that is told from different perspectives, and the example you can simply understand the work by William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying. So these are the point of view that I have highlighted each type of first person, second person, third person, omniscient narrator. Then we have a stream of consciousness, the narrative technique. Then we have unreliable narrator and multiple points of view. So these are the narrators that uses and also frequently appears in the exam. Then we have, let's move on to the next term. We have a protagonist. Protagonist, you know, the character, the central character of the work, main you can say, the central character you can say, and also the known as a protagonist. So Pride and Prejudice, we have Elizabeth Bennet. Then we have Tom Jones, Henry by Henry Fielding, Tom the character. Then we have sorry, then we have Great Expectations, Philip Pirip. There are so many. So the protagonist, the main character in the story, often the hero or a central focus of the work. The plot revolves around the protagonist's goals, conflicts, and growth, but they need not be morally perfect. Protagonists are the characters that appear in the work and center around their center around the focus. You can simply understand the example. We have a Hamlet. The protagonist in Shakespeare's Hamlet, Elizabeth Bennet, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Let's move to the next. Then we have satire. Satire is a literary technique that uses humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to criticize human follies, societal norms, or politics. In satire, you will find humor, laughter, but in some different way. You will find irony, the different meaning, and you will find exaggeration. Exaggeration, you are saying something more exaggerating manner. You are So satire aims to provoke change by exposing absurdities. Whatever the situation you have in the work or the you are experiencing, so this satire works to expose that. Expose that. For example, you can understand Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal and George Orwell's Animal Farm. These are the examples of satire work we have in our literature. There are so many, not only these, but these are the few examples. Then we have symbolism. Symbolism, the use of symbols, objects, symbols, that means you are using any objects, characters, colors, events to represent abstract ideas or concept. And this is what the objective correlative term T.S. Eliot mentioned in to describe the work Hamlet, that why it was a great failure. So symbols go beyond their literal meaning to convey deeper messages. Deeper messages, while using objects through the characters, it highlights your emotions in a more deeper manner, so that audience feel more relatable to the character. So that is why symbol is important. And a symbol, you can simply understand the objective correlative term given by T.S. Eliot, and the example you will have here, the conch shell in Lord of the Flies symbolizes law and order, and the green light in the Great Gatsby, that symbolizes hope and the American dream. Okay. Then we have another very important term from the perspective of UGC NET exam, cacophony. Cacophony, a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds often used in literature to create a jarring, unpleasant effect. The voice, the noise that you are not liking, the sounds that irritates you. It's a mixture of sound that irritates you, that makes you feel irritated. So those type of sound feels you unpleasant. For you, the sound is unpleasant. That is what cacophony means. Writers use cacophony to reflect chaos, tension, or discomfort. It is the opposite of euphony, which is a smooth and pleasant sounding, often achieving through hard consonants like we have K, T, G, P, B. So these are the examples of cacophony, and cacophony is the opposite what euphony refers. The smooth and pleasant, and in opposite to that, in contrast to that, we will have a cacophony, that means the harsh sound, the unpleasant sound, the tension creating sound, chaotic sound, discomfort sound. The example you can simply understand: with throats unslaked, with black lips baked. Agate they heard me call, Samuel Taylor called is the rhyme of the ancient mariner. This line you will find, and these are the examples of cacophony. Move on to the next, everybody. Another important term we have here, catalog. Catalog, a literary device that lists people, objects, place, or ideas in a poetic narrative sequence. The way we, in our normal life, we see the catalog while there are so many pictures with the name, there are so many objects, people, there are so many places, ideas, everything is highlighted in the catalog. So this is what in literary sense you can understand that in a poetic narrative sequence, it is a device that also lists content, people, objects, places, ideas, events. Catalogs can emphasize abundance, variety, or the scope of subject. It's common in epic poetry and free verse. And an example you will have here, Walt Whitman's The Leaves of Grass often uses catalog to celebrate diversity. Okay, so this is the example of a catalog. Move on to the next, everybody. Then we have convention. Convention, it is an established technique, style, or device in literature that is recognized as characteristics of a specific genre. An established technique style, this style of technique is already established in literature, and how you will identify, how you will recognize as a characteristics of a specific genre. There is a genre that's specified in a genre manner and you will identify. So convention help readers understand a work by setting expectations. Like we have soliloquies in Shakespeare, hamartia, then we have catharsis. There are so many drama or rhyme schemes in sonnets. The happy ending in romantic comedies is a convention of the genre. So this is what the convention mean. Okay. I have put the simplest example to make you understand every term. These terms are important for all the English literary exams, English literature exams, and majorly there are so many important concepts that already appeared in UGC NET exam previously. So you all have to watch video till the end. And now let's move on to the next. Now we have denotation. The literal dictionary meaning of a word, denotation. Denotation contrasts with connotation, important both, which refers to the emotional or cultural association of a word. There is a word and the word how you relate in the emotional and cultural associated manner. So snake here, denotation a limbless reptile, and connotation if you will find this, so it means danger and evil. You can say denotation and connotation both refers to each other's opposite meaning if of a one particular word. Okay, so this is the denotation. Then we have another important term for UGC NET exam, denouement. The final resolution or conclusion of a plot after the climax is known as the denouement. It ties up loose ends, resolves conflicts. It ties up loose ends, it resolves conflicts and clarifies the outcome for the characters. It's a simple meaning how you can understand everything when something starts and how things get tangled, then throughout the story you try to solve that, and eventually when the play or drama, the novel, the story is about to end, everything gets untangled. That means everything resolved. So this is what denouement means. In Romeo and Juliet, the denouement occurs when the families reconcile after the lover's death. Very simple example. Very important, and all net's favorite, you can say epigram. It is a brief, witty, and often paradoxical statement or poem. Epigrams are memorable and thought-provoking, sometimes sarcastic or satirical. So epigram, what it is? It is a brief, witty, and often you can understand this in a paradoxical statement or in a poem manner. So I can resist everything except temptation. By Oscar Wilde, this line is here the use of epigram you can simply understand. So I hope you to have understood now. You can use this in a paradoxical statement or poem that uses a satirical way to express an idea in a clever manner. In a clever manner, okay? Clever manner. It is usually just a few lines, but it packs punch, wisdom, or humor. And it is a short and concise, witty or satirical in tone, often ends with a surprising twist or sharp thought, can be moral, ironic, or humorous. Okay, so this is the these are the features of a epigram. How you can understand this? There are a lot of examples you will find of epigram. Alexander Pope's essay on criticism, a little learning is a dangerous thing. A little learning is a dangerous thing. Then we have epigraph. Epigraph, it is a short quotation, poem, or phrase placed at the beginning of a book or chapter to suggest its a theme. Short quotation, poem, or phrase placed at the beginning of a book. Beginning of a but it suggests its purpose is to suggest the theme, set the tone, or provide context for what follows. Okay, so you can understand in that this way that for the example we have T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland opens with the quotation from Petronius Satiricon suggesting and death decay and death. Also, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, there is an example of epigraph we can find that begins with a quote from Paradise Lost. And what is the quote we have here? Did I request the maker from my clay to mold me man? Okay, so these are the examples, and also there are a lot of examples. And if you discuss more further, you can simply understand that it is borrowed from another writer, proverb, or even religious philosophical text. So here, if, with the example, you can say the wasteland. This line is started in the work, but here Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, this quoted, did I request the maker from my clay to mold me man? It is taken from the Paradise Lost work by John Milton. So this is what it means. Quotation you can tip or to quotation or proverb or even the ideas or text you can borrow from some other writer's work. It creates a connection between the quoted words and the author's own work. So that is why the writer uses this thing from the other writers to make the situation more fitable for the audience to make understand. Move on to the next, everybody. Then we have epitaph, very very important. An epitaph, an inscription on a tombstone or a short text honoring a deceased person. It can be literal engraved on a grave or a literary a short poem or a statement in memory of someone. So it is basically an inscription that is written on a tombstone, grave, to honor the deceased person, the person who has passed away. You write something on their tomb, so that is what the epitaph means. And the very popular epitaph example every time we know and we have studied, here lies on one whose name was written in water. This is written on John Keats' tombstone, and it is also appeared in the exam. Move on to the next, everybody. Then you have euphony. Euphony, the unpleasant sound, cacophony, and this was the contrast. It was the unpleasant sound, harsh sound, tension, chaotic, and this was the euphony, pleasant sound. The use of pleasant, harmonious sounds in writing. Euphony is created using soft consonants. Here it is, and long vowels. It produces a soothing effect. Here the example: season of mist and mellow fruitfulness. John Keats' work. You will find this quotation. So now we understand now difference between cacophony and euphony. Both are the contradictory or contrast of each other. Move on to the next, everybody. Then we have exposition. It's again very important. Exposition, the part of literary work that introduces background and information about characters, setting, and events. Exposition sets the stage for the narrative before the rising action begins. It is a part of literary work that introduces background information. Remember, exposition to expose something. And what does it expose? The background information of a work, like we have characters, the setting, the events, everything. So that is the exposition. The opening of Pride and Prejudice explains the Bennet's family situation and the social setting. So this is the exposition, that what type of situation they are facing in the work, and how they live, what are their perceptions. So this is what exposition means. They reveal about the Bennet family. Let's move to the next, everybody. These terms are extremely valuable and helpful, so do not miss any of these. Following action, what does it mean? The following action, the events following the climax that lead toward resolution. Following action that shows the consequences of the climax and starts to wrap up the narrative, the end of the work. Here, after Macbeth is killed, the following action shows the restoration of order in Scotland. So this is what the following action. One thing is following action. You can simply understand that one thing is ending and the another thing is about to start. So that is why it is a following and action. You can understand. Let's move to the next. Then we have a figurative language. Figurative language, the language that uses figure of speech to convey meanings beyond the literal sense. What do you understand the literal meaning? And beyond that literal meaning, we have the figure of speech to convey the broader meaning, to convey more further meaning of specific word or verbs or phrases. So that is what the figurative language signifies. And the figurative language, figure of speech, we have similes, metaphors, personifications, hyperbole, anecdote, alliteration. There are a lot more. So these are the figurative languages. The world is a stage. As you like it, this quotation is simply, and this is the figurative language used here. The world, it is comparison from the stage. And we are merely a players. We are merely a player. So we enhance the meaning by using the figurative figure of speech. Let's move to the next. Then we have motif. Motif is a recurring element, theme, image, or idea in a literary work. In a literary work, the theme, what is an element, what is the image, what is an idea. So this is what described in the literary work, and it helps develop and reinforce the main themes of a text. They are repeated throughout to create a pattern of meaning. Pattern of meaning. They are repeated throughout. They a motif is repeated throughout to create the pattern of meaning of theme, image, whatever the things that has been used in the work. We use the motif in the repetition manner to create a meaning pattern. In Macbeth by Shakespeare, the repeated image of blood act as a motif representing guilt and murder, something that appears frequently to make you feel guilt or whatever you have done something wrong in your past life, and those things appears frequently to realize what you have done, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So that is what motif means. It appears again and again repeatedly. Now let's move to the next, everybody. Now we have a parody. Parody is an imitation of a work, style, or author with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. The writer who uses the imitate, the writer who imitates of another work's style or authors to deliberate or to exaggerate or to create the comic effect in the work. So parody majorly uses humor, irony, and exaggeration to critique or entertain, often mimicking the original style. Here you can understand the example. Don Quixote by Cervantes parodies the medieval romance tradition. Here they have a mention. They parody. Now let's move to the next. There are a lot more literary terms. Again, it's very important for UGC NET exam and all literary exams. Pun. Pun is a play on words using multiple meanings or similar sounds for humor or emphasis. To create humor or to emphasize something, we use multiple meanings or similar sound of a word. Puns rely on wordplay and ambiguity, often creating comic or witty effects in a literary sense or literary work or in a anything. Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana. Multiple meanings or similar sounds. Time here you are mentioning like that flies like an arrow, and fruit likes flies like a banana. So now you understand now. You can also understand this that it is a type of form of a word play. It is mentioned here that exploits multiple meanings of a word or words that sound alike but have different meanings. Here, time flies like an arrow, flies like an arrow, but here they are mentioning fruit flies like a banana. So both they have used the time and fruit both in the sense flies, but you can understand the meaning is different. And the major purpose of fun is to create humor, irony, or the rhetorical effect. It majorly relies on ambiguity of language, often witty, playful, or satirical. And also, you can find this very common in the writer's work. You have Shakespeare, Alexander Pope. Now, let's move to the next. Now, we have a rising action. Just you understand what is falling action. So the rising action, the series of events in a plot that creates suspense and lead to the climax. It develops conflict, introduces complications, and builds reader interest. Suspense. Basically, you can understand the rising action that means a suspense. By creating suspense, you are creating the audience curiosity to watch or to read the work or to see the watch the play. In Great Gatsby, the growing tension between Gatsby, Tom, and Daisy is the rising action. Audience feel more like what comes next, what will happen next. Then we have the very important, most important term, soliloquy. Soliloquy, it is a speech in a play where a character speaks their inner thoughts aloud while alone on stage or not heard by the other characters. It is delivered by a character alone on stage, revealing their inner thoughts and feelings. And the very famous example we have the soliloquy in Hamlet by Shakespeare. Hamlet. Hamlet himself. Here, the famous soliloquy, to be or not to be, that is the question, speech spoken by Hamlet. It gives the audience direct access to the character's mind, that what is happening, what's going on in the mind of a character. So this is what the soliloquy. It often expressing motives or dilemmas. From which situation the character is going through, what's going on their mind, whether it's the positive thing, negative thing, what they are thinking, their actions. So everything they reveal through the soliloquy. It is used to reveal the feelings of the character, motives, conflicts, or plans directly known by the audience, revealed to the audience. And we find this majorly in drama, playwriting, and the character usually use this alone, unlike a monologue which can be addressed to others. And it uses the psychological depth that allows the audience to enter the character's mind, to enter the character's mind by soliloquies. In Elizabethan drama, it was extensively used, and majorly we can find this in Shakespeare's work. Shakespeare's Macbeth also there is a soliloquy. The line you remember is this a dagger which I see before me. Here, this line shows that Macbeth's guilt and temptation before murdering King Duncan. Christopher Marlowe, there is also the use of soliloquy, while Foster's soliloquy before being taken to hell, where he expresses terror and regret. So these are the soliloquies that we use and we find mostly in the Elizabethan work, Elizabethan writers' work. Now let's move on to the next, everybody. Another one of the very important narrative technique, or you can say this, Literary terms, I have explained you what does it mean. There, the not only the literary terms devices, but the techniques, the narrative style, everything falls in the literary terms category. So literary terms, in another very important, we have a stream of consciousness. It is a narrative style that attempts to capture the continuous flow of a character's thought. Your mind is continuously thinking or speaking something. It often fragmented and non-linear. It reflects how thoughts naturally occur in a mind. It is a modernist narrative technique that attempts a modernist narrative technique that attempts to depict the continuous flow of a character's thoughts, feelings, and memories. You will find thoughts, feelings, memories, memories that it occurs in the human mind. Instead of structured sentences, it follows, once again, it follows the natural, often chaotic pattern of the thought. So it reveals the psychological realism that imitates the working of the human mind continuously manner. And frequently you can remember that this is the disjointed, fragmented, non-linear term. It uses interior monologue, free association, shifts in time, lack of punctuation, focuses on subjective experience rather than external events. So this is what the stream of consciousness technique we find, and it majorly you will find in the work of James Joyce, Ulysses, Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway. There are a lot of writers who uses this. To the Lighthouse, William Faulkner's work, The Sound and the Fury, Dorothy Richardson, Pilgrimage series. These are the writers who majorly use this technique in their work. James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, William Faulkner, Dorothy Richardson. So you can remember this. Okay. Now let's move on to the next. Another important term we have here, syllogism. It is a form of reasoning where a conclusion is drawn from two premises. It's a logical structure used in rhetoric and argumentation, and it is a part of paper one, but in English literature, paper two also we can find this term. Okay, so this is the term. It is a form of logical reasoning where a conclusion is drawn from two premises, that we have a major premises and a minor premises. Okay, so do understand, it is a tool of deductive reasoning. It is a tool of deductive reasoning that we do in paper one, deductive reasoning. Okay, so it is often used in philosophy, rhetoric, and literature to demonstrate truth, persuasion, and irony. So remember this. This is the part of deductive reasoning, often used in philosophy, rhetoric, and literature to demonstrate truth, persuasion, and irony. Okay, and it involves two premises, the first one major premises and the second one minor premises. It was first systemized by Aristotle, very important. It includes the major premises. All here you can see the example. Major premises where all humans are moral. Minor premises, Socrates is human. And conclusion, when you find Socrates is moral, because Socrates is mentioned here as a human, and human here is one second. Yes, human is mentioned here as a mortal. So this is what the syllogism means. Major premises, you will have a general statement. General statement, we are talking about the in general about a human. Minor premises, you will have a specific statement, and specific statement we have here Socrates, that will relate to the general statement here to the human. And conclusion, what you will find a logical deduction that follows from both. Conclusion will be followed by both. Okay, so this is what the example. Why writers uses this? Writers often use syllogism to persuade, argue, or create irony in a literature manner, literary sense, or literature work. In poetry, drama, syllogism reveal the logical or illogical reasoning of the characters. logical and illogical reasoning of the character. Sometimes you can say that authors use false syllogism, that is also known as fallacies. As fallacies, very very important to highlight a flawed logic. We will find the example of such in a Shakespeare's work Julius Caesar. We have all men are mortal. Caesar is a man, therefore Caesar must die. Then we can find this work Holy Sonnet and Death We Not Proud. Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales we can find. There are so many examples we can find the syllogism. Fallacies means something wrong. Fallacy is a false syllogism. Okay. Now we have the another term and it is the latest digital literature. Digital literature, now we all are living in AI era. So obviously digital literature must be around the corner. So literature that is created, stored and primarily read on digital devices, it's very easy to understand, often integrate in multimedia, hyperlinks or interactive elements. The way I am teaching you, it is a digital literature, digital platform, digital medium that you are watching from your own space, and here on screen you are watching the printed literature. So, unlike traditional print, digital literature can blend text with images, audio, video, and interactive choices, altering the reader's engagement. You are all able to hear my voice, what I'm saying, what I'm explaining, what we are discussing. So, this is what the digital literature, and sometimes I include images, the text. I can color the text, I can highlight with the pictures. So, this is what the digital literature means. Example 12 Blue by Michael Joyce, a hypertext fiction where readers navigate through linked sections in non-linear order. This thing is easy to understand. Now let's move on to the next. Cyber criticism, very important. Cyber criticism, you have here a branch of literary criticism focusing on literature produced in digital space and its interpretation through technological and internet based frameworks. It is a branch of literary criticism. Cyber criticism, the way people study new historicism, literary criticism, the writers who criticize the written work. So similarly, cyber criticism criticizes the literature produced in a digital space. Digital literature work you can criticize by using the term cyber criticism. While using your interpretation, your own critics, your own concept, your own term. So this is what the mean. It examines how cyberspace changes narrative forms, reader-writer interaction, and literary meaning. So this is what the criticism. Here you are criticizing, but in a different manner. An example of cyber criticism, you can simply understand critical analysis of fan fiction communities on platforms like we have AO3, that means archive of our own, and how they reshape authorship. So this is what the cyber criticism means. Now let's move on to the next, everybody. Then again, we have very important term square theory. Square theory, it is a narrative theory that uses a semiotic square to analyze binary oppositions and their relationship in literature. You know, binary opposition related to Homi K. Bhabha. Explain of it all often associated with the structuralist thinkers. It often associated with the structuralist thinkers. It maps out logical possibilities beyond the simple opposite things. In Hamlet, the binary action versus inaction can be expanded into four quadrants using square theory. Square theory. And why it is called a square? Because you know it's called a square because these four prepositions are placed at the corners of a square and their logical relations are shown through connecting lines. So this is what the square opposition is, a classical logical diagram originating from Aristotle. Very important, originating from Aristotle, that shows the relationship between four types of categorical propositions. And four types of here it is mentioned, that is why here it is mentioned. One second. That is why it is mentioned 4. That means the square, it has 4 squares, the 4 angles. The 4 propositions you can remember: the universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, and a particular negative. So it is an A, E, I, O. All poets are dreamers, universal affirmatives, negative, no poets are dreamers, particular affirmatives, you will say some poets are dreamers, and particular negatives and some poets are not dreamers. So this would be the meaning of a square theory. That means the square opposition. Square theory is also known as square opposition. Square opposition. Okay. This is what the square theory. Square theory, you can simple understand that that shows how 4 types of statements related in the terms of truth and falsity both. It has deep roots in philosophy and later influenced literary theory and structuralism. Theory and structuralism. It is majorly used in rhetoric, logic, and philosophical sense to understand the arguments. Also, it influences structuralist and semiotic theories, that is, we find in A.G. Grammer's semiotic square. And it also helps us to analyze binary opposition in text, that we have love, hate, life, death, presence, absence. So these are the binary oppositions that we find or study through the square theory term. So I hope this term is clear to you. Now let's move on to the next, everybody. Then we have cultural studies. Everybody knows what is cultural studies. We are the students of English literature. So cultural studies, cultural and studies, we are studying the culture that is created by the society or other phenomena, and also they are forcing the other individual to follow, to live like that, to stay like that. So it is an interdisciplinary field, interdisciplinary multiple approach that studies literature in relation to cultural, social, and political context. More than one, so that is the interdisciplinary approach. It looks beyond aesthetics to explore power, ideology, class, race, gender, and identity in text. Through cultural studies, we study all these things. And if there are more, the more things. It analyzing Pride and Prejudice for its reflection on class, gender norms, and regency in England. So this is what the cultural studies, and cultural studies topic, how important it is. The one unit we have. So do understand, it's very important. Then we have the very popular term alienation effect. Alienation effect. It is a theatrical technique introduced by Bertolt Brecht to prevent audiences from emotionally identifying too closely with characters. Too closely with characters. It encourages viewers to think critically rather than become emotionally absorbed, and often through direct addresses, visual stage mechanics, or commentary. Here, I have explained you already. No, okay. So, alienation effect in this Bertolt Brecht, who has created this term, majorly he is trying to say, or according to him, when we read something, we try to feel connected with the audience, or sorry, with the character in each manner. Whether if they are laughing, if they are getting sad, if they are, crying. So here, Bertolt Brecht is saying that instead of getting too close by emotional attaching, by feeling, instead of getting too close with the characters in the emotional manner, you should think me in a more critical way. More critically, if we think that we won't get emotional. If we think something more critically, we will be able to prevent ourselves to get more emotional, and we want attached with the characters. Alienation effect, that means simply you can understand this term is distance yourself. Distance yourself from the character who is trying to be, who is getting more emotional, who is crying, who is getting sad. and think more logically, think more critically. So alienation effect is also, you can remember this alienation effect as a distancing effect. Distancing effect. Okay. And who has coined this term? Bertolt Brecht. Is one of the most important concepts in modern drama. And particularly, you will find this epic theater. Epic theater is also coined by Bertolt Brecht. So it is now you understood now that it is a technique that designed to prevent the audience from losing itself completely in the narrative manner. Instead of being emotionally absorbed in the story, the audience should be constantly reminded that they are watching a performance. So they should not be get too emotional, too sad, too close. And what is the goal? The goal is to make them think critically about the social and political issues, if the character is highlighting, if the writer is highlighting through the work. So on a stage rather than passively consuming entertainment. So you should think more critically. The purpose of alienation effect we majorly use to create a sense of critical detachment in the audience. Detachment to expose the social realities. So, and injustice instead of offering mere escapism, and also to inspire the audience to take action in real life, not just feel sympathy inside the theater with the characters. So this is what the alienation effect means. Here it also you can understand the breaking the fourth wall. Techniques that used for alienation effect, breaking the fourth wall, where actors directly address the audience instead of pretending they are not there. Narration and commentary, inserting songs, captions, placards, or narrators to comment on the actions. There are so many uses of songs, captions, placards. Why this thing uses? Yes, to prevent the audience to feel more attached with the characters. That is why this type of thing is used. Visible stagecraft, using minimal sets, showing lightning, equipment, or scene changes openly to remind viewers it's a play. It's just a play. You don't need to be get so much sad. Gestures, exaggerated acting or gestures to highlight social or political message. After each tragic scene, there should be the comic character. After gestures, disrupting emotional flow. Instead of building sympathy, the play often interrupts with a song, joke, or unexpected commentary. So this is what the alienation effect means, to distract the audience mind so that they could not feel so much attached to the characters' emotions or any tragic flaw by the characters, and instead they can think more critically or logically. Okay, so this is what alienation effect means by Bertolt Brecht. Also, Bertolt Brecht's plays such as Mother Courage and Her Children in 1939 and The Good Person of Szechwan 1943 are the best examples of alienation effect. These two works are the examples of alienation effect, and in this work, Mother Courage's Brecht interrupts tragic moments with songs that force the audience to analyze war's cruelty instead of simply feeling sorrow. They somehow stopped. And you will remember in the Greek drama, the chorus sometimes functions similarly by commenting on the action. Modern films like we have The Wolf of Wall Street or Deadpool, where the narrator talks directly to the audience. This thing also reflects the Burton technique or simply the alienation technique. Okay, so this is, I hope you got the point. You have understood everything bit by bit. Now let's move to the next, everybody. So here is the next thing we have, author and authorship. Author and authorship. What does it mean? The concept of the author as the creator of a text and the debates around their role in meaning making. Concept of the author as the creator. Author becomes a creator of the text. Author writes the text, so that is why author is the creator of the text. And the debates around their role in meaning making. It ranges from traditional views like author versus authority to post-structuralist notions. We have like Roland Barthes in Death of the Author, what he has mentioned. Okay, so this is what it means. So you can simply understand like this, that author is the person who creates a literary, artistic or intellectual work. Traditionally, the author was seen as the origin of meaning in a text, the one who provides intention, style, and structure. In older criticism, we also have studied that how, especially during the Renaissance and Neoclassical period, the author was considered the authority behind the work. Examples we can take from the Elizabethan writer Shakespeare, who is the author of the Hamlet, and Jane Austen is the author of a Pride and Prejudice. So this is the basically term the authors reflects. And authorship is a broader concept. It is not only about the identity of the writer, but also about how authority, ownership, and meaning of a text are defined. It explores questions like who controls the meaning of a text, the author of the reader. Can a text exist without an author? And also, is authorship individual or can it be collective? In the different manner, like we have oral traditions, folklore, digital text. So this is what the author and authorship mean. So here is the example, Roland Barthes, The Death of the Author. In this, you know what he has argued, that the author's intention should not control the meaning of a text. Once published, the text belongs to the readers. So this is what the death of the author means. Once you have written the work, your work is finished. Now the reader who is reading the work, reading the text, it belongs to the readers. So meaning is created by the interaction between the reader and the text now. This is what Roland Barthes suggests in Death of the Author means. We can also understand in the work, like we have what is an author. No, very popular work. What is an author? By Michel Foucault. What he has discussed in this concept, that author function the way how society uses the name of the author to classify, categorize, and give authority to works. So according to him, authorship is not just writing, it is a cultural and institutional role. Okay, so I hope you got the point. You have understood what is author and authorship, and we also have seen the example of Roland Barthes' Death of the Author and Michel Foucault, what is an author. Okay, now let's move on to the next. Next one we have golden age. It's not that important, but still let's see what does it mean. A period in a country's history considered to be the peak or artistic or literary achievement. You can simply understand it. Elizabethan age is also known as the golden age in English literature. Then Victorian age is also known as the golden age in terms of novel work. In Victorian age, so many novels is written and in different ways. So Victorian age is also known as the golden age of novel. So golden age often refers to a flourishing era marked by cultural growth and innovations. The Elizabethan era in England, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Spencer. There are so many writers who contributed with their creative writing. We have seen the blank verse. We have seen a lot of epic works, John Milton. So this is the golden era of English literature. So this is what the golden age refers. Now, now another term we have Harlem Renaissance. Harlem Renaissance, you know, Harlem is a name of a place. So an African American cultural movement of the 1920s to 1930s is centered in the Harlem place that is situated in the New York. It is a celebrated black identity through literature, art, music, challenging racial stereotypes. So this is what the Harlem Renaissance. The people were more focused to create a moment where they can raise the voice against their identities, music, arts, stereotype thinking of the people. So Harlem Renaissance, you can understand, it is a literary, artistic, intellectual, and cultural movement that took place during the 1920s to early 1930s, centered in Harlem, is a place in New York. This term is also known as the New Negro movement. Harlem Renaissance, New Negro movement. Okay, why? Because it gave African American writers, artists, and musicians a powerful voice. A powerful voice. Why? To express their identity, heritage, struggles, and aspirations. They wanted to get that. So that is why they raised their voice. After World War First, there is a large migration of African Americans from the rural South to northern cities that took place. It was also known as the Great Migration. So Harlem is the place in New York became a cultural hub where black artists, remember, black artists, musicians, writers, came together, and this was the time of racial pride, social awakening, and political activism that connected with the NAACP and Marcus Gravis back to Africa movement. So from one term you are now able to learn so many terms. Harlem Renaissance is also known as the New Negro movement, and also back to Africa movement, that is Marcus Gravis, who led by Marcus Gravis. So this was the term that signifies the people's identity, racial voice, where they raise their voice. This term, there are so many writers who are associated with this. So the very popular we have Langston Hughes. Do you remember Langston Hughes? Then we have Claude McKay. Then we have Zora Neale Hurston. Remember the work, their eyes were watching God. Langston Hughes' work, you have The Negro Speaks of Weaver, Claude McKay, Harlem Shadows, novel Home to Harlem. Then you have Jean Toomer, County Cullen, Wallace Thurman. These are all the Harlem Renaissance writers. I hope you do have understood what was the impact of the Harlem Renaissance. The impact, it changed the image of African Americans in literature and culture. It led the foundation to later civil rights literature, and also it broke boundaries by merging politics, art, and identity. So this was the aim of the people, basically, who raised the voice and this movement in Harlem Renaissance, and eventually they got successful. Now let's move on to the next. Now, another important term we have metafiction. Metafiction, fiction that self-consciously addresses the device of fiction, often blurring the boundary between reality and storytelling. So it is a type of fiction that self-consciously draws attention to its status as an artifact. And if you want to understand in a simple manner, you can simply understand like this: the fiction about fiction. Metafiction is a fiction about fiction, or you can say writing about writing. Writing. This class is extremely helpful, everybody. Do not miss any term. Writing about writing. Fiction about fiction. Okay, fiction about fiction. Instead of pretending to be a completely realistic story, metafiction reminds readers that what they are reading is a constructed narrative. So you can say it is a reminder for the readers. The way the alienation effect, Bertolt Brecht said that the reader should not feel so much attached to the character emotionally or any other sense. Instead, you should be more logical and critical. And similarly, the metafiction, it reminds the audience that whatever you are reading, whatever you are feeling, it's just a constructed narration. It is a storytelling. So that is what it is, writing about writing and fiction about a fiction. You can simply remember this. It draws attention to the fact that it's a constructed work. If on a winter's night, a traveler by Italo Calvino is the example of a metafiction. It often breaks the traditional boundary between author, text, reader, and questioning the nature of storytelling itself. Okay, so whatever the boundary between the reader, text, and author have, it breaks the boundary. It breaks the boundary. You will find the example of metafiction in the Lawrence Stern's Tristram Shandy, in which you find the constant digression, author commentary, playful rejection of linear storytelling. Also, there are so many work we have. John Fall's The French Latinist Woman. In this, the author intervenes and even offers some multiple endings. So this is what and how the metafiction is a term that is important. Another important term we have, narrative theory. The way we have done the square theory, now we have the narrative theory, and narrative theory is the study of narrative structures and how stories are told. Now this is what narrative theory means, in which manner how a narrator narrates the story, or the writer has tried to narrate the story, in which manner. This is what shows by narrative theory. It includes analysis of a point of view, temporality, focalization, and plot structures. Here, point of view, the first, second, third person, unreliable narrator we have. So how they have narrated the story, the temporality of the story, focalization of the story, where the writer have focused, and what is the plot and the structure of the story. So everything we find in the narrative theory. You can understand the example Gerard Genet's distinction between the story, that is events, and the narrative discourse, that is how events are told. Very, very important to remember. Now let's move on to the next. Then we have pre-Raphaelite. Pre-Raphaelite, we have it is a 19th century artistic movement that sought to return to the detail, intense colors, and complex compositions of art before Raphael. Pre-Raphaelite is all the name. The term is also a group of English painters related. There is a poets critics that was founded in 1848 by William Holman Hunt, John Everett Millais, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti. These were the pre-Raphaelite brotherhood, also known. You know, term releases, then the term how it used in the literary sense. This is what, when NT asks the questions, we get confused. Why? Because we don't know the meaning, the definition, and the example. So if these things will clear to us, we can easily get the answer solved. So, pre-Raphaelite was the, in literature, how you use this. It inspired rich imagery, medievalism, and sensuality. An example you have here, Dante Gabriel Rossetti's poetry collection, The House of Life. The House of Life. So this is what the pre-Raphaelite refers here. Now let's move to the next, everybody. Then we have social realism. Social realism and social realism are the officially sanctioned style of art and literature in the Soviet Union form from the 1930s onward. This is what the social realism sanctioned style of art and literature. It depicted an idealized vision of socialist life to promote communist ideology. So this is what the socialist idealism, and the example, Maxim Gorky's Mother. So this is the example. Okay. Why and how it is used? The purpose to use to social realism, it is a style of art and literature, and it depicts an idealized vision of socialist life to promote a communist ideology, also to glorify socialism and communism, and to serve as a propaganda for the state. It is optimistic, heroic depictions of workers, peasants, soldiers, and you can simply remember the novels of Maxim here. It is mentioned here, the father of socialist realism, the Maxim, who is known as the father of socialist realism, and also the Soviet posters of farmers that is smiling in fields, workers building factories, etc. This is the example of socialist realism. So Maxim is the father of socialist realism. Okay. Now, so we have completed the 100 all the important common terms, literary terms that always and frequent manner asked by exams. Helpful for all other exams, but majorly there were so many alienation effect. You have a stream of consciousness, theater of the absurd, socialist realism, narrative techniques, square theory. So many terms that are helpful for UGC NET exam. So do watch the video, prepare your own notes and highlight the points in your own word. That will, in that way you will able to remember everything for the longer period of time. There are a lot more I had prepared. Sublime we have, but we will do later. The So this is what I wanted to bring for you. So we have finally completed the 100 most common literary terms, but there are a lot of literary terms that still we have to study. So I will bring the another video for that. Thank you so much for joining everybody. 100 literary terms we have completed, poetry class we have completed, and also unit 3 fiction is running. So do watch intro part I have already uploaded, and in fiction and short stories, there are so many novels we have to cover in detail, the characters, minor, major, the themes, techniques. So do watch the video in the next class for the unit 3 fiction and short stories. Okay. And all together, literary terms, literary theories, and if there is a trending topic running, I'm also bringing that. So stay tuned with me, stay tuned with the channel. Do press the bell icon so that you can get ahead and get the update of all the latest posts. Take care of yourself and bye bye.